Yes, Satish, we can start. Over to you, Satish.
Yeah, good evening, friends. I think I'm Satish Mahajan, one of the students of CyberGurukul. Love to learn new things. And I think today we are going to have one more fantastic session with the theme of the session is cyber security budgeting, pitch to project. Okay, now what do you mean by pitch to project? I think last 2 years we have actually suffered a lot in terms of costing, budgeting. But security is playing a key role when we actually started working on the IT projects. So if you look at the current budget, it must have gone at least by 50 to 60% in most of the companies just to add security to the systems. Right? Earlier, we used to call security as good to have. Now we are talking about must to have. Right? Because we are moving from on-premise to cloud, which is impacting a lot in terms of security. And since the data is freely available globally, anybody can access. So we have to give right access. And that's why security is playing a key role to it. So today to talk about this interesting topic, we have two guests supposed to join. One is Dr. Deepak and the second is Upkar Singh. Okay, Dr. Deepak is not keeping well. So he said he may join next time in some of the sessions. But we have one more veteran from industry, Upkar Singh, who will surely give stars to the discussions. Okay, and I will support him and I will follow him so that we can make this session more interesting. Okay, Harsh will moderate this session and I'll hand over it to Harsh now.
Thank you so much, Satish. I think you're doing the wonderful context setting with the stars, like you mentioned. And a very good evening, warm welcome to all the Cyber Gurukul family who has joined us today, as well as a special thanks to Mr. Upkar, who has graced our platform, keeping in mind the hectic schedule he definitely has. We will definitely miss Mr. Deepak, but then thanks to Satish, who will also be, covering quite a bit in terms of the other side of the story, being hand in hand with Upkar today. So thanks so much for that. But before, we go in detail, let me also have a special mention of the Cyber Gurukul core members and co-founder, Mr. Vijaya, core members, Satish himself, Jagdishwaran. I think Anil will also join us in a few minutes. They, all of them, are the equal pioneer in every aspect of Cyber Gurukul, and really privileged to have all of you today. And before we actually set the context like we do every time and start with the story, let me also take this beautiful opportunity to, like every time, express my thoughts on Cyber Gurukul. Looking forward to also hear from others about this post-fame. Yeah. Cyber Gurukul, this is, of course, a modern Gurukul, which is driven by our passion for cybersecurity, urge for constant learning. And of course, seeing Mr. Upkar being here, also the experience of being a knowledge enabler. And what we truly believe is, if we have to address these prominent concerns, some of them which Satish also mentioned in the start, we'll have detailed discussion during the session as well. We have to simplify, have to make cybersecurity palatable, have to promote inclusiveness for that. That will be one of the key ways how we are able to solve many of these cybersecurity problems or the challenges that we come across. And I'm sure each one of you will concur about that. And to do same, today, Cyber Gurukul has this, ambitious aim that every time we'll bring something on the table with, some storytelling, with consulting, mapping with, the business with the technology, so that we can come up with that language which the non-technical stakeholders can connect and relate to. And this is equally a critical, skills that each of us as professionals need to have. So with Cyber Gurukul, I am, hoping and aiming to definitely help and contribute in this journey along with the other members. So without further delay, it's time to embark the journey of cybersecurity budgeting, pitch, prioritize, and protect. And today we'll be digging deeper into definitely the effective cybersecurity strategy that we can plan around here. But before we do that, Upkar, thank you so much again for joining us today. Trust me, we are extremely excited to grab all the learnings. I do remember our warm-up session, and quite a trailer you have given us. So picture abhi baki hai. So why don't I first, hear a few words from you before going ahead?
Yeah, thank you, Harsh, Satish, and other team member. I think it is really great to be in this platform and sharing, the experiences and learning from others as well, because that is very much important. And just to, quickly introduce myself, currently I'm working with a ITES company called RMSI, and they are into geospatial domain, and I'm taking care of the IT and security, and very soon I am going to institutionalize the DevOps practice as well, because I have having that experience from a last organization. So before this I was with FIS Global in fintech space. So it was great to change the domain, but the things, other things in security perspective per se are all same, and even more challenging, if I say. Right. So it is a very pertinent topic, I think, Harsh and team members you have chosen today. I think this is really something which is very important before you embark your journey to the cyber resilience, right? You might have a good strategy, you might have a good resources, but if the budgets are not there, so you need to buy in the senior management for that, because that it's an ecosystem basically where everyone has to play their role, right? And you just can't expect or from the business leaders to understand the technical terms. So you need to prepare yourself, and that is the reason I think the very perfect, I think, tagline you have chosen. It's a pitch. It is the prioritize, and then only the protection may come. So good to, I think, share further going forward. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Upkar. And these are, some kind words and some very interesting, terms and of course processes which we'll be discussing in detail so that we can have that business buy-in at the same time, the cyber resilience as well. So thank you so much, Upkar. And once again, a warm welcome to Cyber Gurukul. And when I hear the cyber security budgeting, of course, it's quite critical. But the first thing that comes actually in my mind is this. I'll just show you just a second.
Yes.
So I think picture speaks louder than words. While we'll definitely have more discussion around it, I would like to open it first to our audience out here and the core members. Share your interesting thoughts and experiences around what we see currently and what is happening around. Vijay, why don't we start with you?
Yes, that's person he has highlighted.
Vijay, can you be a little louder? I know you're not well and still you have joined us.
No
Thank you so much.
problem. I hope my voice is not.
Yeah, it is clear.
Thank you.
So budget is important, and I would like to phrase that जितनी चादर उतनी ही पैर पसारो. So that is the approach management take, that be in your limit. And when I am the cyber person who is responsible, so that I will use that साई इतना दीजिए जहाँ में कुटुंब समाये, मैं भी भूखा ना रहूं, साई भूखा ना जाए. So these are the two different approach which we need to balance it. But when we speak and we don't have limits, then we have to put in posters only. But the way pre or post COVID era, as Satish has highlighted, things got changed. That prioritization is now visible to everyone. This budgeting is available to some extent, but how to utilize it, how a household woman able to prioritize. Similar to that, if we have a budget, we should be utilizing it best to make our cyber security up to mark, which is changing day in day. So that I can relate to.
I think that's
What we
very, very interesting, relate that you have done and some very interesting thoughts on Jitni Chadar Utna Pair Phailao and few others also. Yes, of course. I think budgeting is something which has been entwined in our day-to-day lives. So I'm sure there are some more interesting thoughts also we'll hear. But yeah, Vidya, very interesting ones, I must say
I
that.
think I'll go just a step before budget.
Okay.
Okay. First
Uh,
thing is defining what you require,
Yes.
because every domain has its own peculiarity and requirement in terms of information security.
hmm,
So the first level when we keep talking about budget is basically what product can suit in our environment.
right.
Okay, I'll give you a very classical example. When I was working with one of the manufacturing company, okay, and I have been given a task of rolling 100 shops in I think in a month's time. Okay, it was if you say it was a tough call. If the products are available, I think if you in today's scenario getting 100 places set up is a tough call. But that time machines were available very easily, and we standardized. We started building the network, and at one fine day, one shopkeeper came to me saying that, "Sir, हमारे यहाँ firewall नहीं है. Security चाहिए तो firewall नहीं तो कैसे चलेगा?" So he was having a single machine. Okay, but he was talking about firewall. That means those words, buzzwords, are so bad that security चाहिए तो firewall चाहिए. So the thing is that it's very important that I think we should define what we are looking at when we talk about security. What is the best industry practice? And then we start looking for a product. And then we start talking about the budget. So बाजू वाले ने बड़ा सॉफ्टवेयर डाल दिया तो मुझे भी डालना है. So somebody will say Defender is good. The other one will say some other product is good. But the important part is you should know what is suitable in your environment. And then we should go to the next level of budgeting.
I think Satish, you brought a very, very critical aspect. And I must say, application, I think that is something which Upkar also mentioned during the warm-up session. You know, how suitable, what is suitable to you? You know, when we are talking about the budgeting, there is a lot of homework we do, but there are some mistakes we do. And I'm sure this is one of them which we'll discuss in detail. Thank you so much. Very important point that you raised. And Anil, who's also a core member, has also raised his hand. Anil, over to you, please.
Yeah, thanks, Harsh, and great to listen to you all. Just one more thing, which I think one from this image, and second from my personal experience, is that how many army personals can you build for yourself? You're going for a war, right? You're going for a budget with a war to your boardroom. How many of supporters can you build it? That's the first thing. Like, say, for example, today everyone is reading about security, everyone is talking about everything, every forum is talking about all of this. How many of them can you bringing on your side is something very much as a first step to even to look at budgeting, look at their thoughts, right? So it's like, how many supporters do you get? Simple as that. How many supporters do you get? And the best way to do a supporting act would be getting trainings. And today, in today's world, thanks to the current scenarios, all the OEMs, all the service providers are ready to train the personals and build in the skill sets, either with no money or was free or whatever you call it, right? As a brand building, they also understand the need of the next step, right? So why don't we collaborate with them and build in this before even going for budgeting or even thinking of taking some numbers to the board? So that's my thought process, and the picture also talks much about it, because this guy is trying to educate the other guy is what I look, the lady looks like on what's happening behind the screen scenes kind of thing.
So Anil, I think that is an important point. So the product owner will sell the product to you, but you have to sell that product to the management.
Management,
And
yes,
for
yes.
that, you need to bring all the people. So the success and failure of any project depends on how many supporters you have to make the project successful. And that is where Anil pitched the right point. Training people, making people aware about the security will help you to give the essence of importance of the product to the management quickly. And that leads to budgeting much faster, budget approvals.
I think I totally, concur with you, Satish, and amazing input that way by Anil. And I must say then, for the B of budgeting, we need to break in the buzzwords and we need to also have the buy-in. So we are already having couple of Bs out here currently.
And I would add to see that Cyber Gurukul, what Anil has highlighted, that army of people and making things aware, we also try to give it back to society and continuously
Absolutely.
contributing. So kudos to us.
So it's an ecosystem. Absolutely true, Vijaya. It's an ecosystem basically outside the organization and inside the organization, which is really plays a big role in it. And as you said, it is not only IT or security function responsibility anymore, right? It is how many supporters you win from the other functions. Like if you ask me to build an army, I don't even want to hire, the security people, because though implementers or executors are required, but we need, the people to accept it also, right? That is the reason in my current organization, when I assessed the, the attack surface of where we are, the first thing I initiated was the security training, just to reach to all employees. And in more than 70% of trainings, I present my thoughts directly to them. And you won't believe that the people have, in first meeting, we had only 7 to 27% presence, right? In next meeting, when people learn that and get to know from others that the training is interesting, the attendance got, increased. And you won't believe that people started, accepting, not only accepting, but also suggesting, right? Yes, these are the things we also feel like, so we are getting the rightful insights or the inputs from the end user also. So this is one of winning angle.
Very much agreed, Upkar. In fact, I think that's the exact language that each one of us need to learn to grow, as well as, to connect to these non-technical stakeholders. And that's one of the reasons we do, very strongly believe that storytelling and consulting needs to go hand in hand with the technology. And we need to map business with the technology as well. If we say cybersecurity is an enabler, we definitely have much bigger job now than we had few years back, right?
So somebody call it as selling, somebody calls it as selling, I call it as awareness. So
Absolutely.
you make people aware, the people will automatically come in with you for supporting you.
Absolutely, Satish. And not only the users, even the management.
Yeah,
Only
I think
if you go to the
end of the day, for me, everybody is an internal user.
Absolutely, very true. And you won't believe that what I made, one tagline for the end user was that, see, because why you need to accept, we are using couple of medium which are vulnerable for attacks or threats, right? And why it is our responsibility. The first question for me to them was that why you are here for this cyber awareness training, right? They ask because it is not your responsibility. You might have a concern that it is IT and security function responsibility, but we are here because we as an employee are the first layer of security. So we need to build for cyber resiliency a multiple layers of security, and the end user or employee are the first layer of it.
Very true. Human touch, the first layer of security.
Yes,
and that's what we will be working at during the session also today. I think a lot of interesting inputs coming out. If anyone else also wants to add on, we'll be happy to take up before going forward.
Yeah, very, very, very interesting and very related contents we were deliberately discussing. The other aspect with respect to budget is, if I would say pre-pandemic, it was a bit challenging. And currently, this is like walk in a smooth, like the boardroom or the business peers or colleagues. They understood the cyber security necessaries than the expertise people like us. And some interesting cases, they come and ask for like, why can't we use publication firewalls? So use the field force when they are going out of the market. Use the MDMs so that they can access only to the office related applications. They can't deviate from the other aspects. So trends are changing, and I hope this will continue to be. And so we are on right track. So happy to hear more insight about this topic from Mr. Upkar Singh and the fellow members from
And
CyberGurukul.
Jagdishwaran, just to add,
Yeah.
to add another aspect to it, not only before pandemic, if you remember, before 2017, when first ransomware attack WannaCry, it was much more difficult. Right.
Correct. Correct.
First,
Yeah.
first
Right. That's true.
WannaCry, it made it little easier, but yes, this pandemic has made it more accelerated now. Now the people are, or even the teams are asking security by design kind of thing. Whenever they start
That's right.
project, they ask for these things. Correct.
That's right. Absolutely correct. Yeah.
So I think very interesting discussion, Jagdishwaran and Upkar. And Jagdishwaran, yes, you quite hit the nail. And why cybersecurity? This question, definitely the acceptance has increased quite a bit. But when I relate to this image, there is a still lot of work done in terms of who, what, and when cybersecurity, right? So I'm sure we'll discuss that as well in detail. So I think there have been some very interesting inputs. Of course, we had started with some flavor of fun, but how we can relate to the day-to-day business problems is also something we came up with couple of different aspects. We'll continue with that. But yes, like to sum up and to just add few more points also, we do realize that in these last few years, with I must say the increased digitization that we have seen, the transformation, the digital attack surface has also exponentially grown, like Upkar had mentioned. With this, we have also, like Upkar mentioned about the WannaCry, but after that also we have seen the increased sophistication of cyber threats. So that is something which definitely worries us, which also make kind of balancing, optimizing your cybersecurity spend versus giving that right cybersecurity posture a much bigger, trickier problem. It really increases it much bigger notches than it was before. So we will definitely discuss how we can actually relate to this. What are the changes that has happened even in the evaluation cycle then and now? We already had started with covering few mistakes that we may be doing currently, as well as how we can actually balance the investments in the people, process, and technology element. The important solution towards what we may be currently doing. And let's not forget getting that language, translating the cyber risk into the business risk, measuring the KPIs that can come from the cybersecurity investments, or quantifying the cyber risk will be equally critical. So in this lines, now let us formally, break the ice and start with the formal part of the session as well. So, Upkar, let me, come to you over here. I think we had some interesting depictions. You have, very much supported us there. But what do you think, what's the story, in detail? Can you tell us about what's the challenges that we have come across with COVID, cybersecurity, and now? So over to you for this.
Yeah, sure, Harsh. And as Satish said that it is a lot of support system now is available in terms of the partners and the solution. And they sell us the product and we need to sell the same to our management, right? So that's what I'm saying. It is more than, budget. It is kind of budget bargaining with the management sometimes, or maybe a selling that thought process or the strategy to them. So from management point of view, I would like to highlight few traits which the security leader must focus to convince the management for security solutions or budget for that matter. So there are multiple reasons why a management would not be interested in buying security, right? Perhaps the most common one is the belief that that simply we doesn't need what you are telling or what you are selling to us, right? So many a times I have heard from my peers that the business owners and the business leaders are suffering from "it won't happen to us" kind of syndrome. They are not convinced that because it has not happened yet and they don't have any data the other people want, or we are too small to be targeted. So these are the couple of things which restricts management many a time. And also return, and if you know, all this management angle will have the finance angle as well. So which will try to find the return on investment kind of things, right? And if the management has the finance people itself, then it is more tougher to explain, right? So in my experience, selling this information security to the management, the most common objective any management is that lack of focus on the tangible return on the security investment, as well as the belief that the security is expensive and it interferes with the operations. Because many a time it has been seen that, or it has been heard that security becomes the blockers to the operations, right? So that is the perceptions they are carrying. So unlike a new server or upgraded productivity software, etc., showing return on investment for security is less institutive investment, which can yield the productivity for that. But as a security leader, as a security investor, we need to make them understand, but this is a fact that the security investment can also yield productivity gains. So that is what we need to prepare for. If we as a leader take a closer look in search of return on investment, right? Not just to close our budget, right? But they need to trust the business consultant for them. So as a security leader, we think we should wear a cap of business consultant for that. It's not only security leader. So one major source of return on security investment is productivity. That's what I look. Yes, productivity can be substantially increased by driving the employees to less distracted. They need to understand the repercussion on that and to follow the organized procedure for doing daily tasks. For example, the implementation of web filtering or user monitoring software can ensure users are spending their work hours during productive work for the company. Another example could be like data loss prevention. By not allowing documents to enter and exit the network unchecked, there is far less time spent searching for the document and validating for the security status. So this process that can be quite time consuming and costly during IT and compliance audit. So if we are able to make this understand to the management, or while discussion, this information security, we as a leader must also find the risk or the tangible losses that may come from not having these product or the services, security product, I mean to say, and seek to quantify those potential losses, which is very, very important, right? Now, there are many products, which is there, cyber quantification audits does happen, CRQs, cyber risk quantification, it is being said, right? So how does it help? That business understands the language of dollars. If they get to know that this is the dollar loss of not having this is the dollar loss not having cyber or the user awareness to this level, this will really help to understand in their terms. So we can help our management to calculate the cost due to loss of this intellectual property or to the goodwill as well. So just by identifying the significant fines, we may face and expenses for the legal defense and lawsuit settlement also. So there are multiple ways where you can keep your management appraised of the implications of, or as I said, the risk and the tangible losses or intangible losses. There is another factor, which is handling security fears and the resistance. So as a leader, we must also help our management to deal with the employee complaints, often caused by the security initiatives. As I said earlier, that many a times it has been heard by that security becomes the blocker. So we need to share the real examples of tragic information security incidents in other small and mid-sized business that are like that. So we need to find, that's where this networking with the community does help. So if you find the real examples of other small or similar business and bring up to their knowledge, this wins the confidence. Show them the actual regulations and tangible penalties for failure to comply, like the recent one, the certain directives. We prepare to counter the common mindset that everything is good and they need not worry. This is the common mindset, very, very critical. We need to break this. We be prepared to counter. Every time I have faced this, but whenever we talk, this is the mindset. And this won't go at one. You will have to keep doing it. We will discuss going further that how to deal with this situation. Now I am only sharing these are the challenges. Now, for example, patching systems are great measure of the most basic security within a network, right? It is also one of the most despised and the least effectively managed IT processes. That's what I have seen across the industry. So the best way is to do an inventory of the patches, then use that as a benchmark assumptions to get the decision makers to realize that there are bigger hidden issues and maybe IT is not as top of it as they thought they were. It is not, I'm giving an example of patching. It is not only limited to patching, but we need to find those examples within the organizations, right? And show them how we are there to help the IT environment become more secure and to make them the leader of their business or in their sector. Because whenever now the clients are even very vigilant. I remember one of our clients, before engaging the vendors like us or the Indian organization, they do validations. There are platforms where they will come up with that, they like security scorecard or bitsite.com. They will come up with your scorecard, that your scorecard is at moderate level. You need to reach at this level, then only you will be eligible for this, the contract or the business opportunities. So if we are able to make our management understand in their term the challenges we have already discussed, and the other things goes in a smooth way. So I'll share them more in next question. Thank you.
I think already the rain of insights have started coming. Some very interesting takeaways already. We really need to break, the you can say perception around the inherent trust and that everything is going to be good. And we are too small enough to be targeted. And I think it's definitely a transition that we are seeing in today's time of how cybersecurity is not just a cost unit, but it is a business enabler, and there's a lot that each one of us will also have to do. We'll have to give them those tangible as well as the hidden cost or the losses, the risk factor. We understand there are fears and resistance around the security initiative. Let us also, remind them one of the kind of tragic cyber incidents which is happening, the kind of damages it caused to the goodwill of the organization, and that definitely, like Upkar mentioned, comes through the networking. We need to have some very different approaches. We really need to innovate our pitches, I guess. So I think Upkar did give us some good examples of the tools like DLP, web filtering, how it can actually improvise the productivity, or how the process of patching, what we need to make changes out here, the way it is managed. And of course, we really need to break this perception again, break the bias against cybersecurity, that cybersecurity is expensive and it can be a bottleneck in operations. And of course, we are going to have quite a detailed discussion on how we can work on this. I think Satish and Anil did mention before that before budgeting, I think these are the tasks that we really need to focus on. So Satish, let us come to you and discuss more in detail that we have this transition, like I was just mentioning, from being a cost unit to the business enabler. How has it really changed? What are the pros, cons happening in the evaluation cycle now, then and now? So maybe you can give us more thoughts around that.
Yeah, I think when we keep talking about the cost, there are two kinds of cost. One is called tangible cost and the other is called non-tangible cost. Okay, so Upkar rightly covered saying that what is the dollar impact to us. Okay, but world is looking at your organization in a different view. Okay, you have a brand value. Okay, the way we have CIBIL score, currently I think same way we have a security score also nowadays. How many security incidents happened? I think nowadays information is available globally. So if I just search one company name, we'll immediately come to know how many attacks have happened in past. So that talks about the poor data management in that organization. Right? So when we actually make a presentation to the management, I think we should cover these things, non-tangible. So, and these non-tangible, how can we convert into tangible? Like if I lose the brand value, okay, what is going to be the impact? How much future business we can lose if I'm targeting some vendor, okay, or some new customer, right? How it is going to impact us. So all these play a key role when we actually start working on the budget. So putting up a presentation is like budget is a number. But I think before numbers, you have to do lots of homework to make it presentable. So if you're techie guy or maybe the management guys are techie plus finance, the life is going to be much easier. But if it's just finance, he will say ROI. But I think ROI is not about tangible value. It also has to be on non-tangible value. Okay, and that is where you are converting your cost center into a profit center. Right? I think hope everybody agrees to this.
Absolutely, absolutely. That you said right, Satish, as I told also in the last that now even, the clients are very, accelerated in that factor that they do ask that scorecard and they won't ask you, they will present you, right?
Correct. Exactly.
Here you are and here you need to be, right? So it is open world now, right? And you just can't hide you behind the firewalls, right?
Correct.
So you need to be ready. That's yes, the intangible ones also converted. If many of the solutions are there where the employee level dollar value only from the cyber awareness, which is an intangible one, they convert it to a dollar value just to convince the management, yes, this is the kind of impact it will be having. Great inputs.
Very much. I think Satish and Upkar already going in a very, very interesting direction. Definitely the non-tangible losses is something, the hidden cost is also something we need to quantify. I think very interesting and critical concepts of the risk security score, the impact on the kind of business that you may have, the customers, because this also is what can impact your brand, your goodwill over here. And how do we actually transition from this cost center to maybe something like a profit center through leveraging cybersecurity investments as well. So Upkar, we had quite a bit of discussion of what the challenges are and what needs to be focused on. And Satish did, cover quite a bit on, this plan to implement phase. Why don't we take out some very, very specific examples, a case study, and like, for example, zero trust is definitely something which each one of us trying to deduce what it actually means to us. And then not only this, how do we actually put it in action? So, why don't you take this example and help us, the right strategy from the plan to implement phase, keeping the cybersecurity budgeting in mind?
Sure, Harsh. I think very important one. And as you know, when we start the role going, and it was discussed that now it is now not a security. Security is getting discussed in boardrooms now, very pertinent, and they are also concerned about. They ask for it, the status of it. Now it is the talk is about the security by design, right? Where these zero trust things are coming up, and the organization will have an opportunity to revamp their network or the architecture are in a better place, right? Or the organization with the existing stage can also build this zero trust into their existing network, but it requires some preparation. Just and as we are talking about the budgeting, so we will be focusing on more on budget rather than zero trust technical aspects. But just to give a brief on around it, that suppose you taken up a task of a zero trust to be placed as an example in your organization. You need to convince the management first. And before convincing the management, as we discussed initially, you need to have people in your support first, right? For that matter, first you need to know where we are, because ultimately the management should have a confidence that we are on a right path, because there is a huge or an ample amount going to be invested for that matter, right? So the first thing should be that the audit of the current attack surface, right? Where we know that where we are. It can be by the internal stakeholders or it can be from the third party, right? But at least we must know that where we are standing today. From not all perspective, it can be the network side, it can be the infrastructure side only, it can be the application side as well, because everything is contributing to the cyber resilience, right? So that is the first. Now, when you take, as we discussed, that the human is the weakest link in this chain, right? And to making them aware on the basic etiquettes or the basic hygiene issue, right? You can buy in their support first, because buying in their acceptance will give you an edge in placing or strategizing your cyber security planning to present it to the management. So you should not always feel, so there is an X factor where you feel like, yes, even the user are in need of such things, right? Because when you ask, you plan a questions or questionnaire where you can ask their pain areas related to zero trust. If suppose this doesn't go wrong, will it affect you, right? So I did the similar, because I had an opportunity in my current organization to plan this JTA. What I did, I make a questionnaire for all function heads as well as their floor managers, right? Just asking their plan, their current pain, and if suppose zero trust kind of things in a very layman language, not in a technical terms, if this is not there, how it is going to impact them, or how it is going to help them if it is there, both ways, right? So you won't believe that I got really some points for my presentation to the management from the end user. So it was a kind of feeling that a lot of support is there with me, as we earlier spoke, and I was very convinced when Satish was mentioning this, right? Because I had recently experienced that. Then what comes into
But I'm so sorry to, interrupt. I usually don't do it, but I'm really curious to know what were, maybe you can at least share some of those observations. It can help all of us as well.
So observation was that, is what particular to our domain, right? Because in our domain, many of the functions do take, because RDP sessions of the high-end machines, right? And many of them do take, enter into the client's environment for that matter. And they wanted to, have that experience of, if you say the high availability, the high speed, because in our domain, we process the geospatial data, right? Speed was one of the main concern. And of course, the data prevention or data protection, because here we are, processing couple of data which are very specific to the regions or to the states, right? So there were floor manager concerns, right? Yes, we are sometimes worried because we are responsible for that. So that way I found that JTA concept in a very simple terms, I put the question, if it is like this, is it going to pain you or some extra efforts is going to help you? How much in number of, like numbering like 1 to 5, that if I put this control in place, right, I may not be able to specify the exact, but suppose if I put this control in place, is it how much it is going to impact you in terms of your operation, or the same control, how much is it going to help you in your operation, right? So I was astonishing to find that more than 70% people were in support of having this control, even though it is losing some of the ease of operations, right? For example, I can give you with a very basic cyber awareness, right? We had, the password policy, which is very common to any organization, of 8-character length, right? And I asked every users during this training that how much password length maximum you have. So most of them were having 8 to 10, or some of them having 11 characters or 12 characters, right? But when I explained them how much vulnerable it is nowadays, as of today, when the brute force tools can crack 8 to 10 character password within minutes to hours, depending upon the complexity, right? So, and as per report or as per the NIST, guidance, 15 character is considered as the safest one, as of now, with all the complexity in place. So my question to them was, will it going to hurt you much, or in return it is going to help to make the security postures robust, right? So they were in favor of that just by contributing few more extra characters into the password length, if it is helping to secure or to strengthen the security posture of the organizations, they were okay with that, right? This is just a very basic example. Specific to business operations, I may not be able to, but yes. So this was the case. So buy-in from the support was from the users. I had one. Now, before going to the management, I assessed the executors. Who are the executors? How much is they are? How much skill they have? Because once you buy in the management, you have to deliver it. So you have to set your guns first, right? So in that process, I accessed the skill gaps, the comfortability of the team members, if any kind of training or learning required to them on these. I took myself multiple sessions for the team to explaining them what JetTeam is. Yes, it is going to impact a lot of, there will be a kind of automation involved, but there can be a lot of extra work or extra responsibilities and roles going to come up to some of the existing members. So we need to convince them as well, ultimately, because just having a solution is not important. The magic is not a technology. The magic is its application, right? And who is going to make it applicable? This workforce, your team member, right? If they are not with you, this is going to be tough for you, even though you get the budgeting approved immediately. So once they are convinced, they are with you, then I think the journey is more simpler. The next thing is that the plan has to be in place. What you are going to propose, like in JTA case, right? You have to have the different phases of it, right? Because JTA is something which is not a particular technology or a solution. It's basically an architecture or a way of working, basically, if you say, right? So you used to have that clarity in your plan, that how you are going to attend one by one. So here I can give you a couple of points which I institutionalized, that what are the checklist, basically what are the different phases we will be going through. The first one, as I said, that complete a security maturity assessment. The first step I did, right? So that get completed. Then identifying critical assets and workload was the next one, or along with the same. Then the third one was the removing redundant access permission. So everything was going in phases. Somewhere were going in one after other, someone going in parallel, but the things were clear in these categories and the steps under them, so that the team with you was knowing their role, the thing were there, who is going to do what, and they were ready to make it institutionalized. So every plan phase-wise was ready. Then the next was the implementing PIM for monitoring and protecting for super user accounts. Sometimes when you plan this checklist, what happens, Harsh, that it has to be in the priority wise in a way that it doesn't impact the business, right? So it should not everything go in parallel, or everything, it should be in a way that yes, something will be happened in next 3 months, something will happen after this phase, we will stop, we will have a gap after this phase, but the priority of this task or the initiatives has to be very well thought of, right? It should not be that something, or it has to be discussed even within the team and within the business units as well. So then we have that strong authentication and multi-factor authentication. We thoughtfully decided that we won't go for multi-factor before having PIM, because first we want to monitor a couple of things and we want to protect the super user, which is a critical one, right? Then we wanted to have bolster our identity management with the behavior analytics, right? So these are stepwise, that we'll do this, then we will do this, and then putting the risk-based authorization into place, then taking the cloud access security governance in place for the cloud-based resources, and as JTA prescribed, basically replacing VPN with the zero trust comes later. So you see, all these steps were well thought of, well discussed, multiple times reviewed, and the steps under them, then the plan was there before going to the budgeting. It was not like that. Sometimes what happens that we go for the budget and then we plan what they, then implementing encryption and data security, because we also prepared that what are the questions we are going to receive from the management and what will be our probable answers and probable questions. So when we had this checklist in place, we multiple times reviewed it. We had a run books, we had a playbooks with the security things, when everything was there. And in the meantime, and this took couple of months, and the meantime, what we did, we need to prepare the management, because we knew that after this whole exercise completes, we will have to reach them out for a presentation, or one presentation is not sufficient enough to convince for the budget approval. So what we did, we started the status reporting to the management since beginning, right? And as I said, the threats of the peer groups or the incidents, cyber incidents in India. We captured couple of incidents of Noida's organization. I may not name here, but there are organizations which got recently hacked or attacked. There are some airlines which recently got attacked. There are some Indian government organizations got attacked. So we started reporting the status of the infrastructure and security to the management in a way, plus the security news, security impacts all around, and why security. So what that made available, plus I took an opportunity to write an articles in our internal blog related to security. So attack charo taraf se, right? Through blogs, through mailer status, and plus security requirement, why security is important, with the planning of everything what is we are going to implement, right? When that happened, and we received couple of questions when we shared these reports with the management, that okay, what this incident happened with them, so how were they able to contain it or not, how much was the impact? So that was the win factor for me, because when I received an query on my status report, I then again on security subject. So I thought, now I am getting impacted. But I have spotted at the right spot, right? So after that, when we presented this to the management, so I believe my task was much easier before explaining, but that too again, as I said earlier also, that we have to be, in very layman term. We should not speak in our, presentation. Our presentation also should be much, much simpler, right? And our talk to them also will be much, much in layman language. Because the first question, when I put JTNA, right, ye zero trust hota kya hai? Because this was the question from the senior man, because they are not techie, right? So if I would explain them in technical terms, right? So I was prepared for this. I thought I will use an analogy for that, right? So what I said, sir, suppose there is a visitor in our office, right? And he will go to the guard will issue a visitor card to him, right? And then suppose the receptionist allow her or him to go into to meet you. That visitor will come to your cabin. In between, he will be able to go anywhere. He can go to any room, any conference room, anywhere before he comes to your cabin. He is allowed to go because he has a visitor card, right? And receptionist has allowed her to get in, right? This is one case. He will come to you, but in between there are chances that he can go to any rooms, any conference room, any area, right? There is another case. Suppose a visitor is there. He got the visitor card, and then after we sent an escort to the guard, that escort bind a black cloth in his eyes, onto his eyes. Then escort is bringing that visitor directly to your cabin, opening up that cloth. He's talking to you, completing his work. Then again, the same escort is binding the black cloth again and taking him out. He has no visibility of anything, no access of anything. This is JTN. And believe me, he didn't ask any question. So we'll have to make it very simple. That's what I just wanted to say with an example, that so preparation has to be at a technical level, because ultimately implementation requires that kind of preparedness. But presentation or buying in management consent into it requires simplicity. So make it simple is the key. Thank you so much.
I think Upkar, quite extensive, comprehensive, I think, security strategy. And this is what, when we say experience counts, this is exactly what I, kind of so much this is almost a page of takeaways, and still I think I don't have space. So much to learn from what you just shared. I mean, I'm really amazed. And yes, I think there are so many takeaways. Still, I'll take few seconds to, actually sum that as well. Like you said, few of the very interesting points. Attack from all four sides. One is break the ice with the concept of, whatever you want to pitch. For example, zero trust. I think Upkar gave a very, very good example. So, of course, the beauty is not in the technology, but its application. That's first step B, to actually present the concept in a similar, simple terms. And uh, the amazing analogy on zero trust, anyways, given by Upkar. But just to share what really helped me to at least understand very basic, concept of zero trust. Of course, not at the level at all of Upkar or Satish, is the airport security example, because I think we all will believe that you talk about cybersecurity, you talk about anything and everything, it comes from around us. Now when you talk about the airport security, it breaks that concept of the inherent trust. And when we say inherent trust, everything is good. No, it's not good. Everyone is not good. So it first, zero trust itself breaks that, I think, mentality. If we are constantly sensitizing, when we go to an airport, there are multiple checks done. They verify our, we as users, they check our ID, they check our passport, they get our back scan. So that's how you're validating the device, and it's not done once, it's multi-layer, right? So a constant monitoring is also done, and still after that there is a limit to where we can go, to just that specific when our flight will be there, we are just going to that floor and to that section. So that's again limiting those access and that privilege. So I think that is definitely the first critical step, which Upkar also mentioned.
Harsh, just want to add one more
Please,
point to it.
please, please,
Okay,
please.
the important part is people should be aware that you are monitored.
Yes, yes,
Very true.
Okay,
Very
so
true.
I
Very
think
true.
one of the most important thing is that people should know that you are monitored. The moment you
Yes.
are realize that you are monitored, there is a huge change in your behavior.
very true. Totally agree, Satish. Constant
Agreed. Agreed.
monitoring is also has what Satish said. Constant monitoring is not only of the IT landscape, but also of the users. So as users, we should also, be constantly sensitized that we are being monitored. Very true, Satish. I think that is
I
definitely
think
one
that is
critical.
what I do when I conduct a training in office. Okay, for the newcomers, the first statement I make is you are monitored, whether you are sending a data packet or you are walking through the corridor. So CCTV camera as well as our DLP or everything is been monitored. So that makes the first step that they start taking things cautiously rather than becoming loose.
Very much. Cybersecurity is a serious business, so you are being monitored. So true. I totally agree with, and I think each one of us will concur as well. And I think, there has been very interesting steps, a very methodical way that Upkar also mentioned, auditing your current attack surface. Yes, budgeting is just not about numbers. There's a lot of homework that goes there. You need to first know where you exactly are. Uh, then understanding, when we talk about cybersecurity awareness, it's not just the awareness we need to give to the users, we also need to understand their pain points. And I think that's where there were some interesting examples of the ROI of the data protection, the client data. These kind of pain points is what we will be able to connect and help our business understand the impact of cybersecurity or of not having it. uh, Also very critical, a step by step roadmap based manner, kind of a checklist, which we need to follow and constantly monitor as well. I think there was some very, very a list of activities that each one of us can do: the cyber security maturity assessment, identifying your crown jewels, what are those redundant assets for you, assigning the roles. Maybe you can start with implementing PIM for super user accounts. Now, when we talk about cybersecurity, we talk about zero trust. It's a journey, and it will take a lot of efforts, time, energy, planning. And I think no one is expecting that we should be able to achieve all at one go, which is not practically possible for sure. So we can start with the super user accounts, have the multi-factor authentication. After that, the behavioral monitoring, and let's not forget that whatever we are discussing does not need to go parallel. It has to be as per your suitability. Some things may be parallel, some things can go step by step. Having those risk-based security controls, security playbooks, cloud security controls, encryption, data security, of course, with the flavor of constant monitoring. And this is not it. We also need to constantly, like Upkar mentioned, attack from all four sides. While we are doing all of this homework, we also need to constantly sensitize with multiple presentation, breaking the ice with the concept, sharing the status report, sharing also what are the cyber incidents that is happening around us, totally around us in India, in our city, so that they also understand the impact, the business impact, they understand the importance of it. So I think quite a bit of hitting the nail that we have done. And I must say, I'm really, really, amazed with the kind of takeaways we already have. So, Upkar, this really helps. We've already overshot the time, but maybe we can take one or two questions as well if anyone would like to ask Upkar and Satish.
So Harsh, I think one more point. Okay, I hate the word audit.
Okay.
Okay, because the moment people say audit, log dar jate hain.
Yeah.
When I go for audit, I'm an auditee for Infosec. Okay, so ISO 27001. But still, whenever we keep talking about audit, people get scared that kuch to hone wala hai. And auditors are the people who always find the mistakes. That is what the concept is. Okay, so I always keep saying that don't use the term audit. I'll say gap analysis. Okay, so we are at A level. We want to reach to a B level. So we need to find a gap and then we should improve upon the gap. Even that presentation to a management makes lots of difference rather than talking about the audit. Audit means suddenly we'll say what NC has come, what are the mistakes we are doing, what are happening. Instead of that, we are at A level. Now, if I want to go to B level, then we need to improve on these areas. And that makes a better presentation to even management also.
Very true, Satish. Very true, Satish. Recently, one of my direct was, drafted a mail to send to the users, right? And that had this word audit, right? And I categorically drafted, reviewed that and removed it because absolutely this audit word really hit users negatively, right? So when you are interacting with the user, you need to be very cautious with the words because you have to win their confidence, right? Even if you want to, put some controls on them, you need to win their confidence either by their managers or, floor managers. So really we need to be very cautious. Very true.
I totally agree, Satish. Again, this is what, we can learn from experiences. So next time, instead of, using audit as a word, let's choose more cautiously. And
so because I'm an auditor
like gap
for
assessment.
Yeah, I'm an auditor for both PMM as well as ISO 27001, ISO 9001. So I know how scary these words are.
Very true.
Right.
Very true.
We've already started getting comments also. I hate the word audit. I think that's very true. So I think it's a good point for us, all of us as well. Thank you so much for that, Satish. So, before we wrap up, any queries, we are happy to take it. I think we already have some very interesting observation, warm comments coming up. So thank you so much for that. Open for maybe one or two queries if anyone would want to raise. You can write in the chat box or you can raise your hand and unmute yourself, and good to go with that.
I think subject was very clear.
Yes, I must say that it was very clear that way. So, Upkar, thank you so much. I think so many takeaways we have already taken with the flavor of ZT. I think there's a query which has come up. Yes, Sanjay, please, happy to take the question.
First of all, thank you, Upkar and Satish, for the giving of such a insightful information and all. So I just want to ask one thing, like, is that we can relevant with the cybersecurity maturity model, because what happened in the organization, they don't know what to purchase, how to purchase, what is internal, like Satish has mentioned about the gap analysis in the organization. So is that cybersecurity maturity model will help the organization to like plan the technology in their future as per the budget also. Sometimes what happened, the IT manager or the CTO, maybe they go with the huge budget to them, okay, and management decline that. So they have to be in a frame, say, you can say phase wise. So is that help them for that?
Yes, Sanjay, I'll just start and Satish can add to it. Sanjay, see, there are frameworks, right? Like the most prevalent one is a NIST framework, right? Which gives a guidance only, right? But I think the best approach would be that assess the current, the attack surface. Every organization is different. Don't follow the other organization. If someone is buying this solution, don't just follow it as, because there could be a problem in a different level in your organization. We may be resolved with an open source solution, right? So it is not always that a similar kind of solution in other organization is going to resolve your issues, right? So you need to know your problem, discuss it in length with the different stakeholders in prevalent, and then plan accordingly. I think frameworks are there for the guidance only, so that what are the steps to be taken, right? And the solution per se, I believe you need to weigh the problems and the issue and the level of them, and then accordingly decide. As Satish mentioned initially, there are multiple solutions at all level, right? तो जितनी चादर है उतना भी पैर पसार सकते हो, या फिर जो आपको चाहिए वो भी डिमांड कर सकते हो. It depends how you approach.
So I think rightly said, I think you don't target the product, you
Yeah.
target the problem
Yes.
rather than product. Because if you target the product, then the product will be sold to you and then that's all.
Yes.
Okay, so you have to find the solution which suits to your organization. So I gave you a simple example. Shop asking for a firewall, that means they are aware of security, but they are not aware of what kind of security is required.
Yes.
A simple
yes.
antivirus could have sorted out the problem, but they are talking about the firewall.
Yes, very
right?
true.
So the important part is you need to find what is best practice in your domain. Okay, and then based on it, I think we should implement the solution. It can be a single product, it can be multiple products, depending on the business requirement.
Very true, I think, Satish. Let's target the problem, not the product, and strive for that suitable solution accordingly. Very much. I think the approaches is something, whether you talk about cybersecurity or any other aspect of life, it does go through that problem solving skills at the end. So I think very much that's how we need to approach. Great, Satish, Upkar, and thank you so much. I think a very interesting and important question, Sanjay. Hope we have, clarified your question as a team. And let me say this, I think there is some comment, 1 second, there is some. Yes, sure. We will be uploading this session, Vikas, on CyberGurukul YouTube channel very soon, and we will also share the same with you. Thank you so much. Before we wrap up, Vijaya, would you like to share any comments or any other core member?
Very interesting and very good case studies, also real life scenarios we have discussed. So thank you, Kasinti and Satish, our core member. Okay. I would urge everyone, like YouTube channel, Vikas has highlighted, please be active on our LinkedIn page also and contribute your thoughts and contributions over there to help us to reach right-minded, like-minded people. So thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Vijaya. And let me once again just thank you so much. And we really appreciate quite interesting insights, quite amazing inputs that you have given, and a very methodical, simplified, cybersecurity strategy, which definitely can connect, and all of us will be able to understand this language. So thank you so much, Upkar. We really could learn quite a bit on this pitch, prioritize, and protect, journey towards the cybersecurity budgeting. Amazing, insightful session. Thank you so much.
And Satish, thank you.
Well supported and quite, critical points also raised by you. Thank you so much, team. Very soon we'll get back with some other interesting session as well. But Upkar, would you like to, wrap up and then we can say a bye?
Yeah, thank you so much, Harsh and team. I think it is a really noble cause you are doing towards the community, and I think keep doing it. because it does also helps the community in large and the organizations as well. Because these things gives a kind of, as he said, when we share our peer groups, right? So we can learn and, unlearn and share some examples with our organization. We can implement a couple of them in our organization. So really great service. Keep doing. All the best to you as a team.
Thank you so much, Upkar. And let's always keep on, doing what we try to do, enable, engage, and empower. Thank you so much, everyone, for the time. Take
Thank you.
care. Have a good weekend.
Bye.